Hey everybody, we're back. Another day, another monologue. As always, take a look below for the monologue. Today's is from Richard III, Another History. Look at it down there, pause me, read it, come on back. So, yes, we are doing another history. This one is about the King Richard III, who this particular play shows his ascension from the Duke of Gloucester into the throne of England and becoming the king through several underhanded means. Over the course of the play, we find out that before the actions of the play, Richard is responsible for the deaths of Henry VI, Henry VI's son. Then he's also responsible for the death of, in the course of the play, two of his brothers, one of his brother's two children, and a handful of other nobles who all he didn't like or thought would be in his way. So Richard is not a good guy in the course of this play. He's responsible for lots of people's deaths. Now, looking at this play, it's very interesting, having read it now, to look at how it kind of moves, because the first part we start watching, Richard is very similar to some of Shakespeare's tragic characters, or tragedy characters, I should say. The one that really strikes me is Macbeth, who we looked at a little while ago, and this idea of a guy who works his way through and eventually does so much evil that everybody has to pile on and take him out. Now, the difference between Macbeth and Richard is that Macbeth starts out as a very good guy. Richard starts out as kind of the bad guy and never leaves that space. He's constantly scheming. He's constantly trying to make things go good for him at the expense of whoever happens to be in his way. In that vein, he's very similar to another character who we will probably visit at some point named Iago from the show Othello. But let's take a look at where we are here. So this monologue is from Act 5, so towards the end of the play. You may notice there's a trend of a lot of really good speeches coming towards the ends of plays, because honestly, that's where everything's kind of coming to a head. And it makes a very interesting thing. Now, obviously, we've seen other monologues that are from the beginnings of plays or from the middles, and each one of these, again, is a kind of push forward of whatever's happening. In this case, like we've seen in pretty much all of the histories, there's a big battle about to take place. Remember how I said that Richard wasn't very well liked? Well, all the murders are coming back to bite him, as there is now rebellion, an open rebellion against Richard's rule in England. And before this monologue, it is the literal night before the battle, and the way that this scene is actually set up in the play is that you have the two tents of the two opposing leaders on either side of the stage, and the ghosts of everyone Richard is responsible for killing come to both of them and tell Richard, you're gonna die, and tell his opponent, you're gonna do great. You're gonna revenge for all of us. And this monologue, Richard wakes up in the dead of night, sweating, and just suddenly like, what have I done? It actually is the one moment in the play where Richard shows something of a conscience. He starts thinking about, like, he asks the question, is there a murderer here? And at first he answers no, because he looks around the tent and clearly there's no one here to murder him. Then he realizes, no, wait, there is a murderer here. Me. I'm a murderer. I've killed so many people. And he actually takes this moment to look at himself and say, well, I'm pretty guilty. I've got a very guilty conscience, and I'm not sure what to do with it. And then, he talks to himself about the ghosts that he believes he just saw in his dreams. So from a character perspective, it's really interesting because Richard immediately goes back to trying to save himself and his kingdom. So he goes right back to his old way, but this is a single moment in Richard's timeline that is basically, oh, hey, I do have a conscience. And it serves as a somewhat humanizing thing for this guy who has been basically an outright villain for the rest of this piece. And it comes right at the end. So from a literary standpoint, we have to ask the question, why would Shakespeare do this? Why would Shakespeare give us a reason to actually think Richard might change. And especially considering this is a history, so this has already happened. The audience knows that Richard is going to die because they know the history. But I think from a literary perspective, from a writer's perspective, someone who is an unredeemable villain is kind of boring. If you ever watch, the mustache-twirling, snidely whiplashes of days past, they're all one note. They don't have any real character. They're just kind of evil for evil's sake. And I think that's what Shakespeare wanted to do, and he does it a lot in a lot of his other shows, is he shows these characters who are, by all intents and purposes, villains, and gives them a soul, gives them reason, and makes them a bit more human. And so this is Richard's human moment. So, here we go. Give me another horse, bind up my wounds, have mercy, Jesu! Soft. I did but dream. O coward conscience, how dost thou afflict me? The light burns blue. It is now dead midnight. Cold, fearful drops stand on my trembling flesh. What do I fear? Myself? There's none else by. Richard loves Richard, that is, I am I. Is there a murderer here? No. Yes, I am. Then fly. What? From myself? Great reason why, lest I revenge. What? Myself upon myself? Alack! I love myself. Wherefore? For any good that I myself have done unto myself? Oh no. Alas, I rather hate myself for hateful deeds committed by myself. I am a villain. Yet I lie, I am not. Fool, of thyself speak well. Fool, do not flatter. My conscience hath 1,000 several tongues, and every tongue brings in a several tale, and every tale condemns me for a villain. Perjury in the highest degree. Murder, stem murder in the direst degree. All several sins, all used in each degree, throng to the bar, crying all guilty, guilty. I shall despair. There is no creature loves me, and if I die, no soul shall pity me. Nay, wherefore should they, since that I myself find in myself no pity to myself? Methought the souls of all that I had murdered came to my tent, and every one did threat tomorrow's vengeance on the head of Richard. And that's it, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for something that won't be a history. Bye!